Check out the size of these military muzzle loaders. One of them is 53 inches and the other one is 56 inches. That's a big baby to haul around. Okay, maybe it's just me, but this is a very tiny bone to pick, like chicken rib tiny. But this has nothing to do with the Earps. One of them who wasn't even from Pella. So let's check out the tribute wall of names of folks from Pella who were part of the Civil War, some of them who lost their lives. And I might even have a story for one or more of these people if I recognize their names. So let's see what I can come up with here. So I'm looking through the list of names and I don't recognize too many of them from any of my research. We're showing Newton and Virgil Earp, Anna William, of course we all know their stories. E.F. Graff Jr. I am not sure on the junior senior part in there, but E.F. Graff, he granted the Earps land here in Pella when they came back after they were here in 1850 and then they went back to Illinois for a minute and then they came back. So E.F. Graff granted them some land at some point, and also E.F. Graff gave Nicholas Earp a rifle before their 1864 journey, and Nicholas Earp wrote a letter about this in 1865, April of 1865, and he wrote about his attacks by Northern Plains Indians, 2 attacks, it's a one-sided story. He uses very colorful language and you can hear him. But it's all laid out in Immigrant Tales of the Platte River Raids. But he specifies at one point that he had to put a Native American in his crosshairs, and he did that with a rifle that he had gotten from E.F. Graff right before the journey began. I'm walking through this hall that has all these women that were important to Wyatt Earp and looking at their faces. And I'm thinking there's one woman who is not on display who is now extremely important to Earp and the Earp fans, and that would be Sarah Jane Rousseau, who captured their entire overland journey from Iowa to California in 1864, and her diary is for sale here at the gift shop. It is the full transcribed item, truly the document. So if you want to know that full story, this is the source. This is it. As close to the original as you can get, because the original is kind of like crumbling in a box now. We're in room number 6, and here they have a map with little points along the way that shows off the journey from Pella to San Bernardino based on the 1864 diary of my 3rd great grandmother, Sarah Jane Rousseau. And I have another teeny tiny, like, lizard-sized bone to pick, because in the audio guide here, there is a selection being read from the diary of Sarah Rousseau, and it sounds like she is some kind of Irish or some kind of litany kind of thing. Super wrong. I would recommend a re-record. She was a landed gentry in London. She would have spoken very proper English with a very I would say high-class accent, if possible. And she doesn't flex on that, not even in her writing. We look out the window where I can see the Vermeer windmill from my perspective. We are looking here at Fort Laramie, July 7. It says near Fort Laramie. Clarification on that, they were on the north side of the North Platte River, and when you're on the north side of the North Platte River, you're not bringing your wagons over to Fort Laramie necessarily, unless you're planning on entirely switching to the South Trail at that point, the Oregon Trail, the Mormon Road. But the Pella Company wasn't. The river was heavily flooded in 1864 and icy cold, and they really didn't have a reason to make that crossing, because if they just stay on the north side, they can continue going through the Black Hills of Idaho Territory just fine. So they didn't cross, but Nicholas Earp and a few of the other guys did cross the river as on pedestrian traffic, really, and maybe on a horse, maybe they swam, maybe they used a ferry. They had a ferry there. They would charge you like 50 cents to $1 per whatever you were bringing over. But the immigrants could not camp at Fort Laramie at all. They could not bring their animals on the property at all, because the military needed their resources for their own animals, and they did not want that additional animal traffic coming, eating up all the good grasses and such. So this is why we're near Fort Laramie, not at Fort Laramie. But while Nicholas was there, he got in trouble because he's a little hot-headed sometimes. And he was very concerned about these rumors that had been coming through of Indian depredations and people being robbed and dying. And so he was checking in somehow on the stock animals, and he saw that the guards had gotten up a dance and they were just goofing off. And so he told them that they needed to experience an attack by Indians so that they would know to be better on guard and take their jobs more seriously. Well, we might think, oh, the guards meaning like Wyatt and James and Robert Parker and other people that are in the Pella Company who were on guard duty. No. He got himself in a fight with soldiers who he had, even though he's a sergeant in the Mexican-American War, he had no authority to tell these soldiers what to do for any reason. Plus, the guys he would have been talking to are not exactly the brightest of the bunch out at Fort Laramie at this time. They had so many turncoats from an 1863 Confederate loss. And so these guys are completely uninvested in anything that the immigrants have to bring to their table. Anyways, so in Sarah Rousseau's diary, she clarifies that he's actually getting confrontational with the soldiers who tell him he needs to mind his own business, and they order him off the property. Nick! This is kind of an awkward one to get into because we're looking at where they are around Fort Bridger. Wyatt Earp claims that he met Jim Bridger and went fishing with him daily while they were in this area. Is it true? So while they were here, Dr. Rousseau saw that there was an Indian hiding in the bushes looking at them. And so I don't know if he saw them through his marine glass or if they were like pretty close where he could see them with his own eyes. Dr. Rousseau, instead of being completely afraid, he went up to this Indian and talked to him and said, what's going on? Why are you in hiding? And the Indian did tell him that his family, his tribal band, had recently been attacked by the Sioux, the Blackfoot, and that they were in hiding. From my research, I learned that that battle that they had had was over at Red Buttes, just outside of the Platte Bridge Station, and it occurred 3 weeks prior. So this guy, his wife, and one child, because the other children were killed in this battle, they were in hiding down by somewhere between Green River and Bear River for weeks. Anyways, the Rousseaus gave them some dinner and were very kind to them and accommodating to them in their time of need. It's time for some more corrective storytelling. Here we have Corn Creek Settlement, which is just outside of the territorial capital of Utah, Fillmore. And when they get to the Corn Creek Settlement, they are guests of the Pavant Ute Chief Kanosh. And they are staying there for almost a month. And they pay, in the Pella Company, they pay his people to take their horses to fresh water and good grass. And so there's immense hospitality, immense respect. And Chief Kanosh actually comes and visits Sarah Rousseau and her husband, and they have breakfast together multiple times. And so there's definitely something very nice happening there. Even after we're considering they have been through the Platte River raids, they've been attacked by Plains Indians before, and yet when they get to the Corn Creek Settlement, there's mutual respect and there's kindness and compassion. I think the Rousseaus recognize that these people are not those people. But Nicholas Earp can't seem to make that distinction. So he's still experiencing what we would now say PTSD effects, and he's very guarded and defensive and aggressive. And so one of, I believe, the Curtis's stock animals had an arrow in its fleshy hindquarters or something, non-threatening, totally no big deal. I mean, probably the cow was like, ow. But Nick Earp lost his ever-loving mind. And he went all the way back, probably replaying those scenes. And this is how this is going to happen. And they're going to attack. And this is the beginning. And this is just, right? And he gets in Chief Kanosh's face and is yelling at him and cussing at him and accusing him of this violence. According to Sarah's diary, he is being surrounded by a dozen armed warriors who are probably like, what's this beef with the chief? Or like, hey chief, do you need us to take this guy out? What's about to happen? Well, there are other versions of this story. Nick Earp says nothing about it because it's kind of embarrassing, I would say. But Wyatt claims, when he told his nephew by marriage, Bill Miller, he claims that in this interaction, this was his very first time to ever point a weapon at someone and really consider, am I going to have to kill this person? And he says to Bill, and Bill Miller's just regurgitating the stories Uncle Wyatt told him, and he says that he aimed his gun at the chief and was going to have to kill him. I don't think so, especially when we now have armed warriors ready. Maybe give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the armed warriors came up and then people were like, whoa, things are getting out of hand. But also, Wyatt's version of this story says that Nicholas Earp pushed the chief, pushed the chief over where the campfire is, which is, no, you don't lay hands on the chief, no. And then Wyatt claims, via Bill Miller, that Nicholas kicked the chief in his seat. No. If that had happened, Nick would have been buried at the Corn Creek Settlement. Don't believe everything you read. Check your facts. Read the source documents, like Sarah's diary, and you'll get to see for yourself. That story wasn't true. Somewhere in this portion of the journey, as they're coming from Utah territory down through what was then Arizona territory, or now Las Vegas and Moapa Valley and parts of Nevada, along the way, Nicholas Earp's blind horse fell down a ravine that was 15 feet, and he had to leave it as they continued to go forward. This entry here, it says stranded in the Mojave. The Earps were not stranded in the Mojave, not ever. They left Sarah Rousseau and her family stranded in the Mojave. That's how that one went. So you can see the full details in her diary where they actually, their horses are too tired to continue on. And so they are stuck in place in present-day Barstow. And when the Earps come up behind the Rousseaus, Dr. James is like, hey, we need help. Like, we can't continue on. And Mr. Earp doesn't stop to help. He says, you know, maybe good luck, and maybe we can send someone back for you later, but he leaves them. There's a very strong chair motif at this museum. So I'm wrapping up my visit at the Wyatt Earp Experience in Pella, Iowa. And the museum is cute. It's immersive. It's got, I love the audio guide, except for a few things. But there's a lot more enjoyment of this kind of experience when you know the story that goes with Wyatt's early years and Virginia and Nick's early years. So for me, I feel like because I knew and I could go beyond the exhibit, I understood what I was looking at. But if you don't know that story, if you don't understand the context and who these people were and what they'd been through, then it could kind of feel pretty empty. And if you're coming here for something really flashy, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. This is not the legendary Wyatt here. This is a boy who, in his own words, told to biographers later, like, this is where he was, a nobody. I get it. I appreciate it. But it definitely begs for some readership. Again, I'll mention those publications. So check out True West, it's a magazine, and also the Wild West History Association has a journal for its members, and also the Tombstone Epitaph has a monthly newspaper that comes out with news stories of the Old West and Wild West and beyond, and they are reputable for you to get deeper looks at this and learn about the people behind the legend. So I hope you enjoyed this tour and the stories beyond. Check out the view from the porch. This is so cute. The WerkPlaats. I think that means workshop. I think that's where they go make wooden shoes. Let's go there next.